フェイトグランドオーダーコスモス・イン・ザ・ロストベルト。
Welcome, dear audience. Today we like to do something special and speculate about the upcoming heroes and chapters of Fate Grand Order 2. With me today I have the voice of my Fate videos, Saint Senate.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for having me.
Both of us are very interested in speculating what heroes are coming and what heroes we want in the game. And I think we can add some unique points that have not been speculated yet. But of course, a lot of this stuff with such a big community are already in consideration.
Obviously, and I personally haven't really read into the speculations yet. I just went off from what I could really put together in my mind based on the subbed Cosmos in the Lostbelt trailer. So yeah, what you'll hear is just wild speculations from two nerds, obviously, and this is basically recorded April 4th, so the first Lostbelt just released. I didn't even really read up on the story there yet.
It's not even out yet. Usually a few days it takes for summaries to arrive. So, I mean, the story chapters are already out, but just with something as story heavy as Fate Grand Order, translation takes a while, and of course we are grateful to the people that actually do that work with these summaries. So I think in 1 to 2 weeks we get the whole picture of the first Lostbelt chapter. So we won't delve too much into the first chapter. Maybe we do it later when we get more information, but we want especially to look at future chapters. And so maybe before we get into the chapters, since we're both Germans, we kind of disappointed that apparently there's no German chapter, except maybe Lostbelt 2, which may contain some.
Well, it's Norse mythology from all what we can guess yet, but that wouldn't really necessitate German servants. It could be pretty much anything. It might as well just stay very well within the realm of Norse mythology. Then again, as we know, basically anyone can appear in the era if he just somehow fits the theme. I mean, remember that we had fucking Kyohime in France just because she was somehow a dragon.
Well, Kyohime at least really became a dragon. I mean, yeah. Elizabeth Bathory has a dragon trait, and I don't think it's really justified. Kyohime has the justification. She became a dragon at the end of her story, and that's why she even is a tier 3 servant, and why she is so high regarded, because a mere human with no divine heritage actually became a mythical creature, which is like never really happened before. And she is the OG Yandere, so basically, yeah.
I like my Yandere with pink hair and a knife.
No, I do not. So yeah, but since we have already started it, maybe we're going into Lostbelt number 2 and what we can expect. So
yeah,
the translation is the Century of Infinite Ice and Flame, die Götterdämmerung.
Yeah, Götterdämmerung, basically you might have heard it at some place. It's somehow seeped into English or just American pop culture. It's German for Dawn of the Gods, and usually in German it is used simply as another word for Ragnarök, which, as you might know, it also exists outside of Marvel movies, and it is simply the end war of the gods in Norse mythology, basically the end of the world. So to give you a rough idea what we might be able to expect. In Norse mythology you have a giant tree, the so-called Yggdrasil. And on that tree you have several worlds. One of them is Midgard, which is our world, and also a city in Final Fantasy VII. Anyway, it says something about frost and flames, So there are two worlds on the Yggdrasil. One is Jötunheim, which is the world of frost giants, and one is Muspelheim, the world of fire giants. So I think it's indicated pretty heavy-handedly that this will be set in that mythology, especially since 1000 BC. This is roughly accurate, I think, for the time period where that mythology might have started around. I mean, sources are of course very, very thin regarding that. But yeah, this is as much as we can guess for now, I think. Or do you have any more clues regarding that?
Well, because you mentioned both of these worlds, I mentioned that we might get the underworld of Norse mythology, which were Niflheim and Helheim, I think.
Well, Niflheim is just the realm of folk. Helheim is really the realm of the dead.
Yeah, and that, of course, is why I'm hoping for German servants. Never minding that Götterdämmerung is obviously German and not Ragnarok. But since many of the dead heroes are in that world, we might actually get the chance of meeting some of these heroes, especially if you combine it with Norse mythology, with the Valkyries.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a speculation for the Lancer, who was named in the first chapter. It's, I think, Canis. How is it spelled? Canis.
I haven't even looked at that one yet.
But I want to be careful with that, because just because she's named doesn't mean it's actually
right.
Canis is the male version. Canis is the female version. It's a hero that was changed into a man after Poseidon raped her. That's a common theme in Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Similar to Medusa, which already is in the game. So it is reasonable in that fact. It was a woman that was gender bent into a man, and after she died, apparently in the Elysian Fields, I think, in the Elysian Fields, she was encountered as a woman again. Now people say, oh, is this a double gender bend? Well, there's two possibilities. For one thing, it's just before she was turned, the version that was summoned, or after she died. If she actually is the servant in the second Lostbelt, my theory with the underworld, of course, would make sense. If she comes from the underworld, at that point she would be female again, and thus she is, he or she plays a pronoun game, is of course, can actually be logical female again without being about fan service.
I mean, you also have to put into consideration the design philosophy behind female servants and gender-bent servants in Fate. Basically, for some of them, when they are lazy, and they're not always lazy, a lot of them are pretty good for their justification in my opinion. But the one female waifu archetype that they still lack is a reverse trap. So put her in her male form as a servant and then reveal that she's a reverse trap. We lack that yet. I mean, basically, Chevalier d'Eon has been a reverse trap with his real historical self, but in Grand Order, it's canonically that the gender cannot be really assumed.
Yes, and here's the thing: she is shown as a female, but a really, really cool design choice would be, someone mentioned that if different ascension arts are different genders, which would make her
That's cool, yeah.
That would be an OG trans person, basically, which would appeal to a lot of people that might get into the game because of that. So that's not something to forget, because Fate Grand Order is now officially English released. So the Japanese, of course, know that at some point this will hit the market, and that many people are already aware of the Japanese version. So it would be clever from an economic point of view.
Yeah, I think they really look into that stuff more and more. it's quite interesting that if you just look at the official English translations, because some people, they kind of rage at the NA version that it has literally MASH instead of Matthew, or Altria instead of Artoria, but apparently Type Moon really insisted, no, you use that fucking romanization of the name, because they kind of want Grand Order to be that vehicle to really popularize the Fate franchise in the West now.
The thing is, Altria was used several times on Saber merchandise.
I know. But really, we know what the katakana read.
Yeah, I mean, also the English version kinds of want to separate itself from the fan translation, and some things are, because of that, differently translated. As a translator myself, I know that. I know why you do that. Because you don't want to be, you want, of course, your justification why you are the translator. But if it really fits, I do take fan translation, because it's stupid to take something else if there's already something where all people agree on that's the correct one. But we are not here to really shit on the translation marketing too much. But that's an interesting aspect, is of course that different heroes are known under different names in different parts of the world. So that does have some meta level to it, if you think about it.
As long as they don't censor anything, as long as they don't go Nintendo Treehouse, I think thus far they've done a pretty splendid job on the NA localization.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the typing errors and stuff, but you know, that can be fixed in time. It isn't so bad. I never felt too much offended by it. At the beginning, it was a rough start, but look at the Japanese beginning, and you know, we are kind of in a good place, really.
I remember having to farm fucking 40 quartz for a 10 gacha, and now it's just 30. I think a lot of NA players don't know how good they have it.
When I started, it was 40, yes.
When I started, we didn't even have something like daily quests. Like, the only way to get free quartz was doing the fucking story, and after that, well, you were shit out of luck. You got your login bonus every now and then, but other than that, just buy our shit. And
bond levels to level 10 were introduced when I started, so... But, we can do streams about that another time. So, any other units? So, I kind of hope for Sigurd.
Yeah, Sigurd would be pretty good. I mean, just like they also had Brünnhilde in her Norse mythology.
You could take the other version, yes.
Right, so the Nibelung version.
And the Nibelung version, to say that, never loved Siegfried. She was an antagonistic character in that one. And the Brünnhilde we have here is in love with Sigurd and not Siegfried. But it makes sense for her to mistake Siegfried as Sigurd, because their original were the same person. And the myth split it. And that's why we have two different versions. And I really hope, because a Fate Apocrypha event is coming up, that Sieg from Apocrypha is not going to be Sigurd. I'm going to be really pissed if that happens.
A fucking demi-servant.
No, yeah, I mean, he will happen as a servant, but just make him like Irisfield and make him not as historical person.
Or at least give us an alter version or something that makes him more badass. I mean...
Yes, I mean, if he actually is a servant, then he should naturally be more useful.
Yeah, I mean, if they add him at all, we won't get around the most generic protagonist ever who fucking ruined the entire light novel. But yeah, whatever.
Our opinion about Apocrypha aside, they literally can do anything from North from mythology. So it's really hard to guess who's coming, really. The data mine I'm looking at, what characters are supposed to come at some point. But there aren't really more North mythology characters. But, you know, I think Fenrir was already an enemy. And so Loki's wolf, if I remember correctly, was all children. I'm quite.
Yeah, I think it was. I think Odin's wolves were Geri and Freki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
his
Fenrir-
ravens were Hunin and Munin. Yeah, it's.
No, I'm laughing because later on we are going to talk about the Kali Yuga, which was an enemy in Super Robot Wars, and in Masukishin, all these familiars have the name of these wolves. So there is Reki and the other one and stuff. So it's funny when your fandoms really overlap at some point so much that you see stuff that has already been mentioned and then see it in another version and how it's used. That's quite funny, I think.
I mean, it's important, especially for a lot of the people. I mean, what I see in the fan community nowadays is that you have a lot of secondaries, but it's also a thing of they often don't really know certain characters, which is perfectly fine. I mean, I'll be completely honest. When I started getting into Fate's Stay Night, I didn't know who the fuck Kuchlen was when I read Opponent. But
yeah, me too.
The thing is, a lot of the names you will come across, especially in the future from what it seems, you will have heard them somewhere. Just be aware that Shiva is not just a Final Fantasy summon. Be aware that people like Thor and Loki, that they exist outside of Marvel movies and stuff like that.
Yes. And Fenrir is the son of Loki, I was right about that. And also is important during the events of Ragnarok, because he's supposed to kill Odin and is supposed to be killed by Odin's son Vyar. So it might, since he was already introduced, he might make a return. And yeah, it would fit the Lostbelt.
Indeed.
So
I mean, it's really the question is also, when does the Lostbelt start? Does it start at a time when that Ragnarok also already got kicked off, or is it about to be kicked off and you have to prevent it, or do you have to fix something that is already broken? I mean, it's kind of hard to guess. But we'll see soon. I mean, it's the next Lostbelt that's up, so...
I guess we're trying to stop Ragnarok from happening. If you think about it, what the enemy kind of wants is that Ragnarok happens and that a new world is built upon it, right?
Well, here's the thing, you can stop such a process from starting, you can also stop it from finishing.
Yes, true enough.
And I think the latter could be more interesting in some cases, if you are still left with a broken world. And just in Nasuverse in general, we know that perfect happy endings don't exist. I mean, remember the very first, I remember playing the very first Saber out hoping to get my happy ending, and I think the happiest thing I got for Saber was to die without regrets, so...
Robert, she got her happy ending later on. With Shiro.
Yeah.
But it's a small thing where they meet again. But I mean, for most part, Fate is quite still positive. If you exclude Fate Zero, which is written by Gen Urobuchi. I think the most positive thing he's written is a Fate Zero event for Fate Grand Order. And even that is bittersweet. But soon enough, it will be. I really recommend it. It has a really nice story, and there's a really cool video where someone has drawn everything from the event and made an entire story video about it. Really, really good.
All those Chinese videos, right? From Bilibili. Yeah, really. I love them. It's really great art and beautifully. They have several of these videos for all of the stories in Grand Order. You should really check that out.
So, with that being said, I think speculating about what servants they choose is kind of pointless. There's really a lot you can do with that mythology, so many characters, and with the whole aspect that they might use the world of the death literary, they can add really anyone they want if they feel like it as additional servants.
I mean, and one last thing that might come to mind. I think we've talked about this very briefly in either a Schwarzes Marken video or a DSE-Reihe video. But as probably everyone knows, Valhalla is a thing in Norse mythology, and in Germany, a Bavarian king once had a hall of Valhalla built to just honor the basically most important Germans in German history. So since we have a German title with Götterdämmerung and its place in that realm of Norse mythology, they might use it to kind of make a connection, maybe have some German heroes at least in Helheim or somewhere like that. Would be pretty cool.
Yeah, the Crimson Queen of the Night, a country of true knowledge integration. We have already speculated quite a bit about, I think the general speculation is about the Han dynasty, if I remember correctly.
The thing is, I never really dove too deep into Chinese mythology, so and I never really played Dynasty Warriors or stuff like that, but I think this is not Romance of the Three Kingdoms anymore. I think this is way past that era I mean, it's 210 BC.
To be fair, when we talk about Chinese, somehow the Romance of Three Kingdoms is the only thing that really comes to the mind of foreigners like us.
Well, I also loved this movie, which kind of played before that time by Jet Li, Hero, which seems to basically be the story of Jinke. But yeah, it's a great movie if you like some very over-the-top Chinese history stuff with stupid Asian martial arts. But it's cool. But I really don't know too much about Chinese history. I just know that they had these insane and very costly wars again among their kingdoms, and that at some point the Romans of the kingdoms turned them all into Dragon Ball-esque super characters like Lu Bu, who fucking who fucking destroys, who makes the earth quake and stuff like that.
The point is, China definitely deserves its own chapter. Just
Indeed.
It has so much mythology and just in general a history behind it, with many philosophers like Confucius and others that stand equal to Western
I mean,
scholars.
now that I think about it, since a lot of the Lostbelt seem to be set in mythology, A Journey to the West would come to mind when it comes to China.
We have two characters already released that are from Journey of the West. We have Sangsang, which is gender-bent version, and we have the Lancer Girl, which name I can't remember, which is also a gender-bender version of the character of the story of the Journey to the West.
But no Sun Wukong or how he's named. I forgot this monkey this monkey god or king. Basically the guy who Son Goku is based on.
No, I don't think he is yet. But I'm also very unsure of Chinese mythology and who's who. So I don't want to make too much speculation on that.
No. But the thing is, it's very likely for a certain reason, and I think a lot of people don't know that. I just happen to know that by accident, because I'm currently working on my master's in history, and so I also get a lot of exchange with people who studied history in other countries. And what I learned about, especially Japan, is that if you study history there, you basically get a choice. You can study just Japanese history, and then you really learn nothing outside of Japanese history. That's why you have so many people who are specialized in Nobunaga or stuff like that. Then you can choose to specialize on Asian history, which is 90% fucking China, which is why you have so many nerds for the Romans of the Three Kingdoms. And then you can choose to study world history, which is mostly European history, which is why you have so many Japanese buffs on that. So, especially when we consider Japan, we already have a big focus on Europe, we already have a big focus on Japan. Like, China is the one thing that's still missing in Fate, at least when it comes to a certain quantity of characters. So, it's likely that we get something with China.
Yeah, and I think I'd suggested Japan would be also quite reasonable, as she already has, because we know that Ashia, no, Ashia Dome, I think it was his name, Ashia Doman, which is the rival to Abe no Seimei, one of the most famous, or the most famous emoji from Japan. And emoji are these kind of priests that in mythology often are said to be also mages, basically. Not really. I think the term is sometry. There's a special term for it. So basically, the most famous priest and his rival are meant to appear. Also, it's definitely confirmed that Ashia appears, and if Ashia appears, it would be kind of weird for Abe no Seimei to not appear.
True.
And from the time I thought about Japan, because the idea you could use the first tenno, or one of the most famous tennos in the start of Japanese history, and make him be possessed by Amaterasu. We already have possession characters like Quetzalcoatl and Ishtar, so it would be an easy way to introduce gods from Japan. Amaterasu obviously being the most famous one.
Well, you don't really need demi-servants for that. I mean, as we already saw with Artemis, you can just lower the divinity of a divine spirit and turn them into a heroic spirit. That's also possible.
Yeah, she kind of cheated the system, right?
Yeah, she did, but she proved that it is possible after all. It's hard to really gain anything from the title itself, and also the age. I mean, if it is not China, when it comes to knowledge synthesis, I think about different knowledges, different cultures coming together. As synthesis is always two things coming together and creating something new. So when I look at the time, 210 BC, if it remains connected to China, it could also be something along the Silk Road, just connecting China and Europe in some way. But also 210 BC, it's somewhat the end of a big Hellenistic age. They're past their prime there, but Rome isn't really that all-encompassing power yet. So it could also be set in Egypt or the Seleucid Empire, where Greek and Egyptian basically knowledge clashed, or in the Seleucid Empire, Persian and Greek knowledge. But I think China is much more likely, because it's just too important to really skip on it.
Yeah, and I think because this unification made me think, what if China was actually conquering all of the Asian countries next to it and became this one world power, basically? Because we know this is kind of, the Lostbelts are kind of parallel bad ends for stuff that happened, which of course these masters want to use to to create new humanity. And I mean, China as the only world power is not unreasonable to think. It would be...
I mean, there are a lot of historians who actually dabble a bit in alternate history, and it's pretty much a consensus. If China had wanted it, they could have been the ones exploring the world and colonizing everything, and they were also technologically so far ahead of Europe. The thing is, China just didn't have any interest about expanding after a certain point. So it's basically them being so passive that allowed Europe to accelerate in its evolution. There are a lot of other factors as well that played there, but China definitely had the potential to be much more powerful than it became in Asia. And for the longest time in Asia, it was the one hegemonial power. So it's possible, yeah.
And what I think about the thing could still stand. You could be trying to stop China from spreading out, and since it's very popular that Japan always had luck in defending itself because of the kamikaze, because of the weather catastrophes happening around it. It was already well defended, so we could have the starting point Japan, and then have to try to get really into China itself, because the chapters right in the first part of Fate Grand Order were always very contained to a specific country. And only in Camelot it kind of went three ways between the Egypts trying to invade Camelot and having a three-way fight with the Hassans and Arash.
Yeah.
So that was the first taste of, having different cultures invade each other, and that would really play into hand if China was the main stage for that event. Also, China is also... the game is currently available in Japanese, English, China, and also in Chinese, and in Korean. So China is definitely a market they may try to appeal to, but which also is censoring Fate Grand Order right now. So
you have to do it in China. I mean, you have a lot of specific laws to abide to, but it's not unreasonable that they pander to it. I mean, even a lot of much bigger companies, they did their best to somehow gain a foothold in China. I mean, I remember Nintendo, they for some reason couldn't release the Nintendo 64 in China, but they had an official IQ player, which was pretty much the same but under a different brand and all of that. So China has always been this big market that Japanese companies try to get into, and it's not just like that some scummy niche companies try to. It's like everybody wants to have a piece of that fat cake.
Let's just end it with that. And China definitely has the right to be here as a center stage. We just don't know much enough to speculate what Chinese characters could actually appear. We have this one Chinese saber. But since we have no real speculation what character that could be ourselves, so I think China is just something we really have to read upon, but nothing we can really speculate on too much.
Yeah, true. The next one, however, is quite different. You have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, well, but there's probably more people that know about Indian mythology than me, but I think the next chapter, the Black Last God, the cycle of creation and destruction. I mean, everyone already who saw the title was thinking of the Kali Yuga, which is basically universe reset that happens after 12,000 years. And just as it might be, we are in the year 11,900 and we have no declaration of the time, which usually is before Christ or Anno Dominio, so BC or AD, which really panders to the idea that we get the Kali Yuga. You made the proposition it could be also about Shiva.
Usually Kali is the black one in Hinduist mythology, but some people told me that in some cases that black god could also be Shiva. But all I know about Hinduist mythology is that it is fucking Dragon Ball Z. If you think Karna is broken, you've seen nothing yet. It's like every second god and demigod is a fucking universe buster there.
Anyway, what it really means for us. I mean, the moon cell is very likely. Just the image in the back already looks like the moon cell, and the moon cell is important in Fate lore enough to guarantee its own chapter, and has introduced in Fate Exteller Link we have Karna and Arjuna, which are primary figures of Indian mythology. So there's really not. I think it's at this point not even speculating, but more what characters are they going to introduce. We have this berserker, this Indian berserker, but then again. That can be so many broken characters from Indian mythology.
Well, maybe some explanation, because as I said, a lot of the people who are nowadays in the Fate fandom, don't really know much outside of the anime. To give you an idea about Karna's power level, because I think Apocrypha, at least the anime didn't really portray it too much.
He's also in the Lancer class, and I think his most primary class would be Archer, where he's even stronger.
No, Archer is that's his. I think it was his half brother or something like
Arjuna
that.
is brother is
Arjuna.
Archer, but
Yeah.
Khan himself has the qualifications for the Archer class, and
He
I
has
think
the
he's even
qualifications,
stronger
yes.
than him. But I'm not sure. I think he couldn't even be summoned as Archer because he would be too broken.
Well, basically what I want to say is Karna, Kinoko Nasu, the big mind behind Fate, after whom also the entire universe is named, the Nasuverse. He once said that basically, even if Gilgamesh goes all out from the start, when he would fight Karna, it would be pretty much a 50-50 who would win. So, and just to tell you that much to everyone, you haven't seen Gilgamesh go all out ever in the animes that far. He has a lot more tricks up his sleeve. So just very, very powerful. And the other thing, the Moon Cell, we've mentioned that. The Moon Cell is usually in Fate Extra. It's in that universe. And to put it briefly, I mean, the Moon Cell is basically a kind of alien supercomputer based on the moon, and it's just kinda it observes the Earth and humanity and records all these great heroic spirits in there. So it's like the Matrix of Fate, if you want to put it in very simple terms. And so if you have something inside the Moon Cell, basically anything can happen, and you get a lot of crazy designs, which I'm kind of looking forward to.
Yeah, and the Moon Cell was established, and that's the thing of because we have another Lostbelt that plays exactly 12,000 years before Christ, but
Yeah.
the Moon Cell even came earlier, before humanity itself existed. The Moon Cell was there and recorded all that stuff, and the Velver, an alien, really aliens trying to eradicate any sentient life. Similar to Muff-Luff, if you have played Muff-Luff Alternative. Very much similar to the beta from that, with the same kind of goal. And basically Altera, which we know as Attila in the Grand Order game as another Genderbend, was sent by the Velva to destroy humanity. She defeated Mars, took his sword, that neat rainbow sword she carries around, and was defeated by a hero that apparently had Caliburn, but it was not Atoria, but a predecessor that was summoned by the Moon Cell, was defeated, a little girl was found that became Attila the Hun, and that's basically something you learn in Fate Extella. The big thing that motivates Attila. There's a lot about Attila, for which you have obviously to play the game, so we keep it short. But just to get an impact, what the Moon Cell has done, it didn't just record, but it is kind of defensive.
It's kind of like the counterforce in a way.
Yeah, it's definitely there to be a defense mechanism for sentient life. So.
But then again, basically the Lostbelt itself, it has as a prerequisite that the counterforce had already failed. So I think the Lostbelt that is set, I mean the title is something like When God Got Shot Down or something like that. It would be something like the Moon Cell would already be under attack or at the verge of being fucked over in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, something bad has to happen to it.
Obviously, that's why it's a Lostbelt.
Yeah. But
and
yeah,
it's similar
usually
to
you wouldn't even
Ragnarok
have that.
in that aspect. It's similar to Ragnarok from the second Lostbelt, where there's
true.
something supposed to happen that ends the world and creates something new, and we're kind of trying to stop that to preserve the current human history. And as I mentioned before when we talked, that's obviously the perfect moment to put Sita into the game. You know, the lover of Rama that can't get together because of the curse. But of course, if we are right into the Kali Yuga and universe reset, we may be able to bypass that rule, and we might actually get Sita into Chaldea, and it would be a bittersweet moment, because then we could also get lore-wise a reconnection between Sita and Rama. Because I was always against having Sita, because that kind of ruins the lore behind these two characters. But of course, this Kali Yuga is a perfect excuse for getting her into it and not fucking the lore up, which would make really bittersweet moment, especially considering the America chapter, where Sita again died for Rama. Spoilers. And it would be such a nice follow-up to that, and I think that would be really one of these heartwarming moments from Fate Grand Order, and it was built up on too, so really cool. But then again, Indian mythology, so many characters that we don't know that could be there. Shiva as an enemy, Kana, Arjuna in different classes could come. And all the Indian mythology I don't know, but I think at this point we can really say this is an Indian-based chapter and a moon cell.
Fourth one.
Yeah.
Since we already had this with the fifth one, that's exactly 12,000 BC. The thing is, I see a great chance there. And that is, I think something in the title refers to an interstellar city or a city of stars or something like that.
It's different. The day, the stars, no, that's the sixth. The day God is shut down, interstellar city mountains.
Basically, the big chance I see there is that we for once see that civilization behind those aliens. Basically, show us something about the creators of a moon cell. But then again, this is a thin line to walk, because I think we don't want to have everything shown about them, because you can only disappoint. I think it's best to keep it somewhat vague, but show us enough to tingle our interest, right? Give us enough to speculate, but don't really answer all our questions. And please don't just make it a civilization of a bunch of waifus who I don't know, just did this shit because they were bored.
The thing is, 12,000 BC, is that the start of civilized human history? Where you really can...
Civilized? Oh no.
Yeah, no, but the point is, of course, we don't start about the real start of when humans existed. That's a long time before. But is it the point when human history is worth recording? Being recorded?
I don't think so, no. That's too far back. From another standpoint, the thing is, I never really go into prehistoric history, and I think a few historians actually do. I can't tell you if we had anything worth of notice happening at 12,000 BC, but I don't think so. I think it's just they went really far back, so they can still connect to that whole Kali Yuga stuff, to that whole universe reset, but at the same time do something about that alien race, to just show something about that, like a galactic civilization or whatever. Could be pretty cool, could be pretty shit.
Could be an origin to the Velba, which are the main enemy of Fate Extella, which are the entity that's trying to kill us. But really, what do you summon? What kind of servants do you summon 12,000 BC that seem related? At this point, you could.
I think we don't get anyone from that period, especially. I think either we get complete OC characters, well, OCs, I mean.
Yeah.
or we get people from all over.
Yeah,
Because I still think that singularity could still feature the moon cell, as far as I'm concerned, or even some other kind of mechanism. And it's really hard to tell. I mean, that one could be absolutely anything, and that's why I'm both excited and worried about it. Because it could really fall apart.
It's really hard to tell. There isn't really something we can say. An interstellar urban mountain you would of course think about something that's alien to Earth. If we really talk about interstellar, it could be gods, because since Mars exists, it kind of makes all the gods already aliens. So the possibility of these gods existing before they are recorded is of course reasonable. But yeah, even speculating is really, really hard.
Yeah, you can't really do anything, I mean...
Yeah, but do you want to speculate on that chapter, really?
But they should be aware of this, because the thing that really sells Fate is that you always have a very cool backstory about a person, and even if it's just in legend, you have something that you can relate to, that someone who has some other material out there in this world. Some kind of a general template that this servant originated from. That's why I don't think that they go completely OC. They have to put someone there who we can relate to. And even if it's just from some stupid myth.
Yes, the thing is, human history is about 200,000 years ago. Then you might think about doing, the step when the first time humans were on the path to becoming a civilized entity. So you may be similar to, of course, Adam and Eva, but in the regard that the first humans that made the decision to go to evolve basically into what humanity is now. Can you follow my thought here? The bad end when humans didn't decide to become basically the end of the natural circle.
When humans didn't... when they told Cubase to fuck off.
Basically, yes. Basically, when we are first on the path to becoming the rulers of the planet, At that point, if you didn't do that decision, and humanity would never prosper as the dominant species of the Earth. And that's also something I would assume could happen. So maybe we meet the first recorded human, basically. Even so, humans itself are, of course, much older than that.
I think we'll get servants from all kinds of eras there.
Yeah, most likely.
I don't expect much else.
Probably.
And as for the story, it sounds reasonable that you have something like the very beginning of humanity being brought into question. That sounds good to me, actually.
Yeah, it's the only thing I can guess right now. But then again, I think the next chapter is something you can do more speculation about, and that's Lostbelt number 6, which is the moment a star is born and the round table region.
Yeah.
Or territory.
I mean, obviously, this has to be the latest point where we get something with Matthew or Mashu.
Yeah, but
and I think it mirrors the first part of Grand Order nicely, because in the first part we had that sixth singularity being Camelot, and then we have a different kind, a pre-Camelot, a Camelot has not been established or something like that, as a Lostbelt. Could be cool.
And the reason is quite nice, actually, if you think about it. Mashu has lost the real connection to her power. She has to use gadgets by Da Vinci to get up to speed, and she can't use Lord Camelot as easily. It doesn't really work that way anymore. And the reason, of course, could be if the Round Table never formed, the son of Lancelot, Galahad is never born, Mashu would never get her powers, and thus wouldn't exist as a demi-servant.
Yeah.
And so I don't really think you do anything else, because the Round Table region and AD 500, which would fit the bill from the timeline, and connecting it to the moon cell again, Attila was born around 440, and in the Tab Moon universe, of course, Altera, after defeated, became the child that would later become Attila. So it is set around 60 years before that, where a user was summoned that could use Caliban, which, of course, if this was before the Round Table was created, would fit nicely to that part where the Velva tried to invade Earth. And it would definitely give us something for the mythology here. So it's really fitting. I don't think many other things come into question.
I mean, what they could do and probably would do, because you also have to think about we're coming to the end of the Lostbelts now, and they can't just have something random for the finale. Just like they had to go fucking Camelot and Babylon at the end of the first part. So with this Camelot, they basically have a chance to whatever they do with that sixth Lostbelt, they could basically bring a completely alternative version of all the characters if Camelot was never established. Maybe Artoria would have become a hero in a totally different way. Maybe all the characters from fucking Camelot would have turned out to totally different, but not necessarily insignificant or powerless. And we all know how much the Nasuers love saber clones.
It could change the power dynamic. And one important fact is that in the main artwork for Fate Grand Order 2, Artoria is in the middle and has Avalon. And it's by this point a meme how underpowered OG Artoria is. And people suspect, of course, the Avalon upgrade would be possible in this chapter. Which, of course...
Well, actually it shouldn't be, because originally in the novels it was always referenced... Avalon is not something that Artoria is summoned with as a servant kit. It boosts her stats and everything, but she's not summoned with it because it's a relic. I think even in the Unlimited Blade Works anime, Archer said at some point, this is a sacred relic, not something that was summoned.
Yeah, but you don't really have to summon her.
We just had it because Kiritsugu used it as a catalyst.
Yeah, but you don't have to summon her if she exists in that time because of the change. Then it might...
True, that's a good idea, yeah.
Like Nero. Nero is not a servant in the chapter where you meet her. She's a human, which creates all kinds of different problems, which in the future when we do a video about Nero will be addressed. But for OG Artoria is of course possible. You could make... Well, of course we have the male Artoria from a different universe, but of course... If you want to put him in the center stage, you could make this chapter where in this universe Artoria was born as a man and not as a girl, and have him introduced. I mean, many people want an alter version from the male Artoria.
If we just go by power levels, just give me fucking Merlin as a villain. That would be fucking interesting.
Considering how broken he is, that would make it the hardest chapter again, just like in the first Fate Grand Order. But there's many people that could be the villains here. We have still not... Morgan Le Fay is only mentioned, not introduced yet. She could make a good counterbalance to Merlin in the game, and would be a perfect good excuse as a villain in this chapter. Of course, which we didn't talk about is that the most masters, we fighting actual masters in these chapters, that they have a specific servant on their side. But it's never confirmed what classes they have to be. It's only assumed that, for example, Lostbelt number 6, the servant would be an assassin servant, because it would suit the kind of assassin like character that is the master in that chapter. But then again, we don't know what servants are for what master yet, so...
What about if in that Lostbelt it's not a servant who drew Excalibur? What if it is that specific master who then establishes his version of a kingdom?
Nah, I don't think he looks so smug already. I don't think he's the type to draw that sword.
I mean, he could be pretty similar to Jason in the Okeanos chapter. He was really someone who fought, but he was charismatic enough to gather all these people around and carry out his plans.
Yeah, his Argonauts, true enough.
Yeah.
The thing is, in the first chapter, you actually, when you fight Anastasia, the master casts, like you would, mystic codes on his servant in specific turns.
Mm.
And he has common seals. So that is kind of scary as a thought when you fight them, because probably story-wise he could use common seals to revive his servants until you probably have to defeat him in the way that he has to use up all his common seals, so you're able to finally finish his servant.
Yeah.
That may play into it. There's a really there's different aspects you could go with that, no?
I mean, we might even get another cheater like Kirei who has a shit ton of command seals.
Yeah, the thing is, Kirei is apparently summoned, but he's not Kirei, he's a different person. So that gives us, there's so many possibilities. With his priest outfit, there are so many priests he could be. Of course, the most popular belief would be Rasputin, because he kind of looks like him, and it was because of Anastasia chapter you thought about Russian priests, and Rasputin comes to mind. But really, there's so many people he can be.
And again, that Anastasia that we have now is not the Anastasia that from the Russian Revolution. It's another one. So I mean, Rasputin he fits into the overall geographic area and all of that, but we don't know. I mean, why not? And this would not even be a crossover, but why not have some kind of mix of Kirei and Araya Soren? I mean, the latter was the basic template of first, so...
With Araya Soren, I always thought of him like a Musashibo Benkei character, because...
Yeah.
But, Musashi Benkei is already a character, and... Yeah, with Araya, I don't know how much they want to put of Kara no Kyokai into Fate Grand Order. I mean, the lore is already important. If you think about the Mystic Eyes of Death perception that King Hazan has at a much stronger version than Shiki. I mean, in the final chapter in Babylon, he inserts the concept of death into Tiamat so that you can kill her. Just to say how fucking powerful he is.
Yeah. I mean, now that I think about it, since I mean, we just had it as an event chapter in between in the first part of Grand Order, that whole Kara no Kyokai event. But why not put in the last third of this big type moon universe? Why not have some Tsukihime content in Lostbelt? That would be cool.
I don't know how...
After all, we don't even have a Tsukihime anime.
Yeah, I don't know. We only have this one cool opening, but they did never an anime about it, right? It's really sad. If you're running, look up memes. But Tsukihime, you make a good point. What if there won't be a Tsukihime collab, but Tsukihime as a chapter? Now, we talked about 12,000 years before. I don't know when the first true ancestor existed. I think Arkwright precedes them all. I think she's the oldest
even
one.
then, it's an interstellar city, and Arkwright is basically the universe creates her. So
that's something I didn't think about, because they are aware that people want Tsukihime in Fate Grand Order.
Yeah,
and it would make sense.
That would be the perfect solution for them.
Yeah, and you don't even need to make it an event. That's the thing. But then again, it's been ages since I read Tsukihime, and I've only read the first route. So the remake is really needed. But I don't know how old Arcade actually is. That's quite interesting thought. If she would exist.
She's old enough to be legal.
She has met Arcade's first encounter with Krishua Salvage Schweinorg, which is basically, isn't that a creator of the original magic that the Tosakas are derived from?
Selrech Schweinorg is the last, one of the last living humans who can still use one of the 5 original magics. I think he's in Strange Fake, if I'm not mistaken. But I'd have to read up on that.
Yeah, he has control over the second magic kaleidoscope, which allows for the operation of parallel worlds. That is something that could describe Lostbelt.
Yeah.
So
indeed,
it is possible that they would bring up a. It should be actually. It would make sense to bring Tsukihime into it. It's nothing I really considered because Tsukihime has been for quite a while non-existent apparently, except of course for the visual novels.
Yeah.
But now that I think about it, that's an aspect that I didn't really think about it. If they would canonically introduce, because that's all OC characters, and we talked just about that they would have used OC characters for such a big time, such a big far away time from human recordings. So, and it would perfectly to connect Arcade to the moon cell. If you consider Tsukihime really means goddess of the moon, so that would be, of course, a good connection, and you would get your fans the fan service they wanted, and have it perfect into your story.
So Delightworks, if you are listening, if you are still looking for writers, call us.
Call us if you need someone to do a good German chapter. I'm still my idea still is for a chapter where we in Germany are defending against a Roman invasion and have even some modern scientists in Germany, like Marie Curie or some other characters. That's like, I mean, I don't know if it would be an insult, but you know, Stephen Hawking as a servant of Fate Grand Order. And,
he could be pretty damn cool. I mean, look what we did with Tesla, and
I know.
Even Sherlock Holmes with all his monocles and stuff like that. I imagine fucking Stephen Hawking in a mech suit or something like that.
Or like controlling a supercomputer. I mean, it wouldn't be an insult, but I think it's too soon to make it, since he just
too soon, definitely,
because he just died. But he's definitely a person that is definitely recorded in human history. Basically, he predicted the moon cell. If you kind of wanted, he acknowledged the existence of the moon cell with his own series. So, yeah, of course, I don't think it would happen, but I think it wouldn't be an insult to add him into such a game. But his family might well think that. So, but yeah,
I think Elon Musk wouldn't mind to be in Grand Order.
Yeah,
but he's still alive.
Yeah,
so.
And also Stephen Hawking has a bit more justification, I think, to be in Grand Order. He could be a pioneer of the universe if we have Tesla as a pioneer of stars. But that's just, I think he deserves it, considering the hardships that that man has gone through, and still being one of the most important, proficient scientific figures of our modern time. I think he deserves it. He has definitely justified the same rank as some heroes that we know today.
I suggest a new class, the Thinker.
The Thinker.
Yeah, you could put all the philosophers there, like Socrates, Kant, and all of them.
Yeah. Here one Kafka is also not introduced yet, right? So,
Franz Kafka? Oh no, not him.
but he would be perfect for the foreigner class.
Yeah, that's right, in a way. He would fit.
And we
He was
still
foreigner in his own country, in a way.
yeah, we still don't have H.P. Lovecraft, so
I think H.P. Lovecraft, they might be a bit wary of him. I mean, I love his books and everything, and I have no issues with him, but nowadays in America, he's viewed in a bit of some people consider him problematic because of racist views and stuff like that, but it's just, you can't measure people based on the values we hold today. It's like you complain that that Iskander did not have a gender officer or someone like that, or a diversity management in his court or stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if any of you have pets. Just think about that. Maybe in the future animal rights get so advanced that your grandchildren ask you if you also had animal slaves. Because maybe to them that seems like slavery that we have pets nowadays. It's just never really try to judge people based on the values we hold today. Because the values we hold today, they will at some point also be thrown away and considered to be stupid.
yeah, it's a good point. Then again, yeah, the possibility is quite interesting, especially for the chapter. But yeah, we were with the round table. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that. We're still missing Agra Rain, who was in the chapter quite prominently in Camelot, but wasn't released. So he's definitely missing, and a lot of other roundhouse. I know Lionheart is quite wanted. He's definitely on the top 5 wanted male characters list.
I really don't like his design, to be honest. But,
but just from the popularity, it would make sense, and he fits
Yeah.
in that era, so he could be summonable, and literally all of the missing round table members could be introduced. It could be also
Paxival really misses.
And it could be like a civil war between two factions of the round table at the forming. There's so many things you could do with how the round table never came to be. Really, it's open.
Or just if it came about as something else entirely. Just a corrupted version of Camelot would also yield so many possibilities.
True enough.
Alright, Then there's this one last Lostbelt, which basically gives us little to nothing to really guess something. I have a theory though. So the thing is, we don't have a number of a year. All we know is that it is BC, before Christ. And the title, most of the title is like redacted information, but it's something. A sea of trees, or in the midst of a lot of trees,
or woodland.
It's something about a shit ton of trees. Yeah. So here's what I'm thinking. This is the last Lostbelt. They can't just put anything. As I said before, last time we ended with Camelot and Babylonia. This time we end with Camelot or another version of Camelot or a non-Camelot, and the other thing has to top that. Now I thought, what could top that? First of all, let's look at the date. We know it's BC, and with the whole Kali Yuga stuff, they really didn't put any BC or AD because they knew this is beyond that. Now BC, I'm thinking about, if it's a lot of trees, I'm thinking about the Garden of Eden. And in a way, it fits perfectly. I mean, just look at the story. Not only is the Bible this very important
scripture,
religious material that you could use, it also has all these power levels in a way that you could use, and it fits perfectly as a Lostbelt. God throws Adam and Eve out of paradise, out of the Garden Eden, and basically makes it non-accessible to humanity. And to God, this whole thing that Eve took that apple is a bad end. And so it would make a lot of sense that he cut that out of the official timeline and threw it into an alternate universe as a Lostbelt. And that would be like one of the biggest mythological things that you can end these Lostbelt franchise on, because most of the Lostbelt, as we've seen so far, has always something to do with mythology or some legends or, you know, anything that's really very out there when it comes to Nasuverse. So I think Garden of Eden would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's the perfect ground for creation of a new humanity. You could even go to the point, what if God never expelled Adam and Eve from the universe? Perhaps the master, which is also male, wants to be the new Adam of the humanity that rises. It's a perfect, if you're talking about creating new humanity, where better to start than the Garden of Eden?
Right.
Of course, the obvious two servants that would be reasonable would be Adam and Eve.
Yeah, and they also, because don't forget the Japanese side on this, they could just as well, because even if it doesn't fit into the Garden Eden, it fits to the creation of humanity, Izanagi and Izanami. They could bring them in some way or form.
You could bring basically all of the godfathers, literally the godfathers of... You could make it a battle royale of the gods.
Yeah, I just thought about that.
That would be pretty awesome, if you think about it.
I mean, you couldn't top that in any way.
Yeah, that's
if Fate is about the history of humanity, then you couldn't really top the very beginning of it and have all the creators of humanity go at each other's throats.
Some supporting humanity and some are against it, which would fit. There's many gods supporting, but also many gods that would like for humanity to disappear. You could introduce angels, like Lucifer as an enemy, who perhaps because of Supernatural is quite known as a human hater. But perfectly. You could have the whole... There's so much from the Bible. The angels are just one thing. And Lucifer would be as a perfect enemy for such a chapter.
True, yeah.
Maybe create...
I mean, we've basically spent the entire first half with just a bunch of shitty demon gods summoned by Solomon, so...
And here's the thing, but something that would be so grand, I don't know in Fate Grand Order 3 what you would do. How do you top that?
For quite some time I was pretty mad at the Lostbelts, because I don't see how they would top it regardless of whether or not the last one is Eden. I mean, I think they should have gone with normal singularities for a while longer before making this jump, because I think after that they've got nothing left.
Well, except the aliens. Maybe the future. You could go that. We've been protecting the past, basically, for the two chapters. It would make sense if the third chapter is the present or the future. And with all the Velva and the Moon Cell, I
think the present would be better, because with the future you again step into that realm. You have to think about, who can I bring that people actually care about? And mostly it would be people from the past. I mean, the only servant from the future we have is Emiya, and we only care for him for obvious reasons.
But here's the thing: I think you can still summon past servants to protect the continuation of humanity. If aliens come around, but it's the only thing really left. I mean, Garden of Eden. And with a real god fight between a battle royale of gods would be really, really cool, and it would be really strong. And I think no other mobile game could get story-wise near Fate in that aspect. Like, it would, as sad as it sounds, if Fate Grand Order after that was going to die, it would kind of die at a good point if they really made that, you know?
Pretty much, yeah. It has to die at some point.
Yes, it won't die after that, but I'm just thinking if we have reached that point, at least I can say Fate Grand Order did something grand, literally grand.
Yeah.
And that would be remembered. And if you are fighting, and here's the thing, if you're protecting the future after that, you can end it at any point and say that, well, we are still fighting with the heroes of the past against the dangers of the universe that we can predict and stuff. You could end it at any point after that, but still make interesting story elements.
Another continuation they could bring that wouldn't necessarily top the first one, but would make sense story-wise, if you somehow fail in the last Lostbelt or stuff like that.
And we are in a new world where we have to correct.
Create a new timeline, and then they could again go chronologically through time, and you have to help establish the timeline that we knew once more.
And we could start in the past. We start at the point furthest in the human history, and then we have to climb the rank and correct history from the beginning to the present.
Right.
That would be
that would be a way.
Yeah, this would be a good way. So you can actually, it doesn't have to top it. It just have to be a continuation of the final. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, they first really have to see how these Lostbelts are, how they are received by the fans, and I think they really played it safe with the first Lostbelt because. Thematically, it's not too far away from singularities we've had thus far, all the remnants. It'll be interesting how it goes on from the second Lostbelt onwards, because then we really dive into mythology and all of that.
I think the first Lostbelt chapter was just to ease you in, just like when Fate Grand Order started, so introducing the new mechanics, like having the master support this enemy servant and stuff. So that's just really to get into the new chapters. But man,
true, yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of hyped. If the last chapter really is going to be Garden of Eden, that's pretty dope. So
that would be damn cool.
And I hope if you like it, of course, do the usual stuff. Put a like on this video. Subscribe, and definitely comment on what you think is going to happen, especially on the Chinese and on the Indian side. We are not that knowledgeable, but you may know things that could add to the speculation, because of course speculating what is going to come is kind of fun, and we all kind of want to do it. Do you have any last words?
Not actually, no.
Yeah, you do talk quite a lot too. Much more than me, probably. But yeah, that's a nice. The next videos will be done when the time is ready. I try to do some in the future. It's always a lot of work, but of course I'm happy if you are patient and look forward to when the videos are done. And with that, I welcome you to the first chapter of Lostbelt, and